Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about Trump's tariff temper tantrum. He is fit to be tied because the Canadian government, our good neighbor to the north, whom he has done his best in 10 months to really degrade a shining, successful relationship over the decades. He's now imposed big tariffs, and the government responded with a fairly clever commercial, kind of poking fun at him, that ran over the weekend, including in the World Series. That was one of his beefs. He said it wasn't supposed to run over the weekend. They're supposed to stop it. But he was misinformed, and there in the, with all the huge viewing audience, we had Ronald Reagan, the absolute sort of mythic figure, godfather for so many on the conservative right, although not others. One interesting sidelight here is it kind of brings home a bit of a divide between Reagan's mythic figure for many, but a lot of Trump's actual constituency are people who don't no longer worship at the altar of Reagan. Anyway, for those who do, or just period, Reagan stated the classic case against tariffs. In this commercial, they took an ad and they gave some of his statements from it, and it states the classic economic case, especially economic conservative case against tariffs. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens, markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industry shut down, and millions of people lose their job, said Ronald Reagan, returned from the past almost 40 years ago from to our living rooms during the World Series. Okay, Trump's first reaction: this is a complete fake ad. So out of the Trumpian playbook. Idea here is there are a few snippets that it's not one straight quote, but just a few very representative snippets from the Reagan speech, and that supposedly makes the whole thing a fraud. It's reminiscent of their bogus claim about Kamala Harris and the 60 Minutes interview. Trump's response is ironic because he's angry at using these words of Reagan, and the words of Reagan were precisely, it triggers fierce trade wars, And so what did Trump do? Take another move in a fierce trade war. He said, just because you aired it, I'm going to increase the already high tariffs on Canada by 10%. Now, Canada, 3/4 of Canada's imports go to the United States. So if consumers have to pay more for Canadian goods, it's bad for consumers and it's bad for Canada. So this is really him, playing brass knuckles with our best buddy, as it were. It's hard to think of anyone whom we were closer with than Canada. And it's actually, he's managed in 8 months to really disrupt that rosy relationship. And Canada, I think you're going to see it for the games with the Blue Jays and when the Dodgers play at Toronto. The country despises Trump for just this reason. They wonder how they got on the receiving end of his bully boy tactics. Let me just say that even given the economic counter argument for tariffs, I think no respectable economist would say this kind of capricious, unpredictable, I'm going to do 10% government by tantrum makes any sense at all. It's completely unpredictable. Actually, for a little cross promotion here, we just published today on the Talking Feds site our periodic economic roundtable. It's a really great one. Paul Krugman, Steph Rule, and Justin Wolfers. And they go into exactly this, that it's Trump's MO to be so erratic and spasmodic. And whatever your policy is, when you act that way, and of course it's the same with the rule of law, it's the same with universities, it's bad for the economy, period. His unpredictability is, the absolute kryptonite for a prosperous country's stable economic life. Okay. Trump's besides the sort of personal affront, his other big reason for wanting to punish Canada, he thinks the reason they've done this, he's certain, is to try to influence the United States Supreme Court that is going to hear arguments about the legality of his tariffs next week. Big case for sure, but the idea that he is so unsophisticated and ignorant. He's just a complete imbecile on where anything with the law and the court comes, because the notion that, let's say some of them watched the World Series and saw a commercial in which Ronald Reagan makes the economic case against tariffs, that somehow would influence them in their decision about whether the tariffs are legal under the regime that Trump has invoked. It's just preposterous. And, it's so much a sort of Trumpian way of thinking. Say Reagan thinks tariffs bad, therefore the 2025 Supreme Court thinks they're illegal. It's really shows his sort of grotesque lack of sophistication. He pulled a similar move before, saying he's going to attend the oral argument. We'll see if that actually happens. But again, the idea that his being there and glowering as he does will somehow cause, the 6 or the 3, Barrett, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh to say, here's the guy who appointed me to life tenure where I can't be taken off the court. I better really step to and do the right thing. It's a court that is very solicitous of his views or of his power, not because of his views. That's really the wrong way to put it. It's because of the legal arguments for very robust, crazy, in fact, executive power. But that's just got nothing to do with the idea that Trump, will show up in court and they'll cower and rule his way. If anything, the opposite. I wouldn't be surprised if the court tries to dissuade him from attending, because it'll just be such a mess and a circus. But I've attended cases with real big shots present, not the president of the United States, but very well known people, and the notion that somehow that pushes the court in that direction, really for anyone of any sophistication, is completely ridiculous. Okay, so there you have it. It's deceptive. Why? Because the quotes are separated, but that's it's all completely of a piece from the same commercial. The real, nasty attack on Canada, because 75% come from them, and really the reason, just his personal tantrum and the way that governing style, whatever you think of his policies, so many of which seem really crappy, his actual conduct is so much on the sort of petty reactive side of getting even and trying to, throw his weight around. That's really, I think, the notion here. And that, more generally, is just bad for the economy, bad for the American people, bad for the markets, good only for Donald Trump to be able to exercise power and have people come to him on bended knee and kiss the ring, so he can then undo the edict that he has, just thrown down. That's really, so it's a pretty strong illustration of his governing style and why it is so toxic. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.